This episode is brought to you by Temptations Cat Treats. Your cat will come running for the perfectly irresistible Temptations Creamy Puree and Temptations Lickable Spoon Cat Treats. The best time to feed lickable cat treats to your cat is anytime. Feed by hand for a playful moment, in a bowl for a creamy treat, or as a topper to make mealtime fun. Visit temptationstreats.com to learn more.
Get ready for Netflix's gripping new medical drama, Pulse. Set in a cutting-edge Miami trauma center, third-year resident Dr. Danny Sims is unexpectedly thrust into a promotion when beloved chief resident Dr. Xander Phillips gets suspended. Then, with the emotional and physical stakes at their highest, a storm will push the hospital and its residents to their limits. Witness how life can change in a heartbeat when you're operating under pressure. Watch Pulse, only on Netflix.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's tax season, and we're all a bit tired of numbers. But here's one you need to hear. $16.5 billion. That's how much the IRS flagged for possible identity fraud last year. Now here's a good number. 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it. Guaranteed. Save up to 40% your first year at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
You're listening to
They're going to call it a hard foul. They're going to call it a hard foul.
Hot Foul listeners, I'm Jim Quigley again here with my brother Mike, but today we got a special episode as we have Kyle Nash all the way from Orlando, Florida. You are from Orlando, right, Kyle?
I am. Listen, I spent a lot of time at the Kia Center. I was there the one time the Magic beat the Celtics this year. I'm even forecasting the end of the year what I think is going to happen. I get it. Tatum was out. I know. I'm not being that guy. But yeah, so yeah, man, I'm what is it? 20 minutes from the Kia Center. So there you go.
There we go. And you're the host of the Duval Dive, a Jacksonville Jaguar podcast, but we also cover the Magic. And we can hit on the Patriots Jaguars draft at the end of the show if you want. But and he's a cousin of ours for the Fan First Sports Network. So, collaborating here. So we're happy to have you, Kyle. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about yourself, your podcast, and all that fun stuff.
Well, sure. Yeah. I mean, first of all, I'm Greek, so anybody who I'm tight with is a cousin. That fits. Yeah, of course, I do a lot of work as the student of the game. That podcast is normally where I talk NBA and other stuff. I'm kind of in between episodes on that. I also here in the Orlando area, cover UCF for college football. So Big 12 action there. A lot of basketball going on. For the few people that are watching Fox's Crown tournament, UCF moved on to the second round of that. So make sure you check out those articles too, blackandgoldbanneret.com, as well as the Night Shift podcast and YouTube channel there too. So a little bit of college sports for you too, guys. I do a lot of stuff.
Well, you're a man of you're a renaissance man when it comes to podcasts and sports coverage, huh? Just covering everything from college football, basketball, professional hoops, professional football. We just do the basketball here. That's it.
I aspire to reach your point, but hey, I'll put it this way: by day, gentlemen, I work in data, but it also infuriates me when people blame analytics for their own silliness. You've seen enough of that for sure in the football world, at the very least. But the fact you call me Renaissance man is already a single greatest compliment I will get in this month, I am sure. So let's rock and roll.
Let's rock and roll. All right, let's start with this. Your Magic, I would say, disappointing this season from my perspective because of injuries. You had some really tough breaks at the beginning of the season. Both Franz Wagner and Banchero went out the same injury too, if I remember correctly. Right.
Obviously, losing Suggs and Mo Wagner for the season are huge losses.
Yeah. Well, and let me get started with this. I don't know how many people in the NBA media could spell the word oblique, and to have two guys missing it with that same injury.
It's unbelievable.
It's just, awful is only where it begins to happen too. And I find it funny that Paolo gets hurt this close to Halloween because there was nothing scarier. Like, you didn't have that bad of a dip for the Magic until after the All-Star break with the home skid, where they lost to the Raptors twice, not back-to-backs because there were 2 nights in between, only then 2 days later to lose to the Bulls. Like, I wrote an article recently on Fans First Sports Network about 3 games that the Magic could wish they had back. I talk about that stretch significantly as part of those 3 games. So, make sure you check that out for some of the other ones that were involved in there too.
How much was that with just an adjustment with Suggs out? Because that's the thing that surprised me, is how much he meant to that offense. I knew how much he meant to the team defense, but how much he meant to that offense, initiating it from the point guard position was, I guess I didn't appreciate.
Well, and listen, when it comes to Jalen, you obviously have to bring him up, right? He's if you're going to, every successful NBA team in this day and age, and even beyond, right? We keep talking about, the Heatles invented the big 3. No, it was Garnett and Boston that invented the big 3. Did we forget that Jordan and the Bulls were a thing? Like, I don't know. Anyway,
well, we had Bird, McHale, and Parrish before that.
Oh, okay. What about the guys that were surrounding the guys in black and white with Bill Russell, right? Like, please, the big 3 though, nonetheless, regardless of what, whether you're watching it on a flat screen or a CRT or listening to it on the radio or whatever you're doing, is an essential piece. And Jalen is obviously that number 3. And while we talk about his offensive production, which, let's be honest, it was missed when he was gone, especially with a team that's shooting at the bottom of the league, the way the Magic are.
Right.
I mean, say what you will about Zach Lowe going after the Orlando media about allegedly not going after Jamal Mosley about shooting, even though I'm in that room every night and that question's asked every night, but cool. Say what you will about it, the ball isn't going in the basket, whoever's fault it is. And Suggs missing is a big part of that. Now, granted, they do have a second-year kid off the bench, Anthony Black, that's come in.
I like him, yeah.
Oh, listen, there's a reason why I wrote an article about him having the opposite of a sophomore slump. Also, Fans First Sports Network. I have to hit the bell when I bring up the home network, guys. You appreciate this, right? But what he's done defensively himself, and I know there's a lot of criticism of Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, but in the month of March, shooting better than 40%. And I believe
3 for 3 last night from 3.
Excellent point. Yeah. And I think that made for either his 9th or his 10th. I haven't counted since they finished the San Antonio game, but I know he was at 7 before losing to the Clippers. So I made it to 9, made it to 8 rather, against the Spurs, but that technically isn't the month of March. So, there's that. The math has to math, guys, is what I'm saying. But not only did he have that many double-digit games, shooting over 40% from 3, he was actually it's not that he's getting utilized more, he's just connecting on them more. But I heard the implication that Jamal Mosley's the issue. He's running this antiquated offense. What I see, fellas, is dudes get open, they brick the shot, and that ain't on Mosley.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are running Corey Joseph out there at point guard right now. So I don't know how you can blame Jamal Mosley for the injuries on this team. You're losing with Wagner and Suggs alone over 30 points a game. And efficient shooting from both of them. Mo Wagner gets no respect. And I understand it because before he went to Orlando, he wasn't a good player. I mean, we had him here in Boston for a short period. He was not doing what he was doing in Orlando. And he would come into the game and fill it up. And that would surprise me. Every time we would play Orlando, the Celtics would, this guy would come in and put up 12 points pretty quickly and be like, where was this guy when he was in Boston? So I would agree. Mosley was basically coach of the year last year. I don't know if he won it, but in my mind, he was the best coach in the NBA last year, getting what he got out of that team. And so, yeah, I think injuries have really decimated what you guys could have been. But I think recently the trend has been that you guys have been playing well, playing more competitive basketball. And the one thing with the Orlando Magic that gives them a shot really against anybody when you talk about winning a game is their defense in the half court. Their two wings are long and their two star wings both defend. And that presents a lot of problems even for, I think, the Celtics. I think they match up pretty well with Cleveland and Boston. I don't think they can beat us in the series, but I'm hoping to match up and play against Atlanta than Orlando right now.
Yeah, well, and here's the point I've made, listen, I cover the NBA. I'm in Orlando. The main reason I hope Orlando does good is because, let's be honest, it's more money for me the longer they play in the postseason. Let's not be dumb. You guys you guys are covering a big market team. You come to Orlando in the regular season, I get money off of that. So please come back. But that all being said, for Orlando, here's why I think Orlando's a more dangerous out for Boston than Atlanta. Maybe it's an easier basketball game, but you guys are going to be wanting to push harder for a sweep than anywhere else, because every other game you're playing against the Orlando Magic, unless, they come out and shoot even worse than they're normally capable of. Meaning, if they have a slight spark to even make it close, to come out and have a good first half, you have to play physical. You have to engage them to win the game, or else they will overwhelm you. They will force you into turnovers, and they will beat you. That's how it happened here when I saw it at Kia Center. I think it was still 2024 when it happened, but details. The punchline is this, though, fellas. Maybe you'll win. Maybe you'll win that round easier, but you're going to be more sore.
Exactly.
Going the next round. And that's the point I make clear always with playing the Magic.
Yeah, I worry about KP getting hurt in that series. That's something that I'm concerned about with the physicality.
You said it before I did.
That's something that would concern me. And I think me and Jimmy alluded to this on the pod earlier. Atlanta has given the Celtics fits in the past. Trae Young is a player that Celtics don't match up well against small, quick guards. And he and Dyson Daniels really, they get their way against Boston. And I think that would be a series that might go 6 games. I told Jimmy the Orlando series might end in 4 or 5, but I'm concerned about the longevity of the impact of those 4 or 5 games and how physical they're going to be.
Yeah, I look at Orlando, and the couple of things that really impressed me is what Banchero's been able to do with no shooting around him since the All-Star break. I think he's the second leading scorer in the league, about 29.5 a game, and really has been efficient. He does a great job of squeezing out matchups. I talked about when we played the Lakers that there's only a few guys in the league that can hunt Drew Holiday or Derek White, and you're talking Luka Doncic, LeBron James, and I think Banchero fits that mold. Now, he's not as polished as those guys yet. May never be. I mean, those are fantastic all-time offensive players, and there's no shame if you don't get to that level, because that's next level stuff. But he's really been really, really good there. The other thing is the physicality on defense, and you saw that. They caught the Celtics at a time where they were kind of in the lull of coming off a championship season, and they were 500 for 2 months. And since then, they've been a much different team, other than tonight, where they look like they don't want to be there at all. But they
just cut it to 12.
But they have the ability, Orlando, to make it difficult, like you guys said. And I think they have the ability to play physical. They match up pretty well defensively against these guys. I think what Orlando's problem would be, and Kyle, I'd love to hear if you agree, is Orlando, they rely a lot on isolation off of Banchero and getting Wagner going that way. Celtics, that's how they play defense. If you slow it down against the Celtics, you're playing right into their hands. You have to play fast on offense against the Celtics. You have to try. You're not going to win a playoff series against this rendition of the Celtics with as much talent, size, and versatility that they have by thinking you got to try to out-defend them for 4 games. You need to score, and that's probably the biggest issue for Orlando, I think, in the series against the Celtics.
I'll see that and raise you this, Jim. Like, I feel like everything you said, and it's so perfect because you know who you sounded like? You sounded like Paolo Banchero on why the Clips were able to hold them below 90 on Monday night. That was exactly what he said, is he kept it slow. They kept it slow. They played right into their hands. I think when I see, first of all, I'm assuming Cole Anthony will be back for a playoff. So, and
he's back now, right? Yeah.
He's I know he was training better. I don't remember if he went out or I didn't.
He played last night. Yeah.
Did he? Okay, yeah, I hadn't had a chance to check. So thank you for telling
me. He's another random Celtic killer.
Yeah.
Well, but that's the thing though. If fast pace is what kills you,
fast.
Yeah, there's no dude that plays faster than Cole Anthony. And I'll even add this: like you guys mention Jalen Suggs, and rightly so. But what Paolo talked about in the off season was needing a table setter. And say what you will about, Corey Joseph running the point. He had at least 3 double-digit nights I can think of off the top of my head. So he did his job to a lot of extent, filled in very nicely.
He's a pro.
Yeah, did not play a way you would expect for Corey Joseph to necessarily fill in. But the numbers were there, But yeah, that I expect a 20-point Cole Anthony game. Same thing we saw when they beat the Cavs a few weeks back on the road, right? I expect the Magic to have more threes than their other team, meaning, and the reason why I put it that way, that means not only are they hitting theirs at a reasonable clip, the perimeter defense is actually doing their job and holding another team from making it from 3. And I think those things alone, you always assume, well, let's put it this way, Paolo and Franz average, 40 or 50 a night anyway. In the article I wrote about what the Magic need to do to win each night, I only look for 35 from Wagner and Banchero combined, so long as they have 2 other players that'll get double digits. We mentioned Cole Anthony. The other one I would assume would be either Anthony Black or Kentavious Caldwell-Pope from 3, right?
Yeah, Wendell Carter getting keep points, which I think he's a tough player too. I just wanted to mention about Pablo because Jimmy brought him up. One of the things that I've noticed about him, I actually got to see him live last year, and I had like really good seats. He creates space for himself. Which is like one of the hardest skills to do in the NBA is to create space for yourself. And for a guy his size to have those handles, I think I told Jimmy, like, he reminds me of a more polished Carmelo Anthony, like, because he defends, he rebounds, he's more efficient with his scoring. And I think he has the ability to be a great passer. Like, he's got some Jason Tatum in him, honestly.
He does. The Tatum comparison, I think, is apt. I think there's a lot of what you see between those 2 guys, especially Tatum earlier in his career, and then how his game kind of grew
outward. He's got that Carmelo size, you know what I mean? Yeah, that big body. He could be up there with the greats. I see it in that guy. I hope that the franchise is as patient with him as the Celtics were with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, because there was a lot of talk in the media out here for a long time of splitting those 2 up. They had seasons that didn't go so great. You guys have a duo in Orlando that I think is worth investing in.
And let's put it this way. The only reason I would give pause for Suggs is the old adage, if you can't help the club in the tub. You just got to be prepared for Jalen to miss time, because A, that's how hard this dude plays, and B, that's how hard this dude plays. It's the best of both worlds there. But that being said, if an Anthony Black or a Cole Anthony or somebody's coming in to be that table setter, to do what needs to be done when you're when you're kind of shifting away from the perimeter, I'm expecting Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Maybe they're overpaying him some. That's fine. That is what it is. You need somebody there over the age of 28, at some point to lead these dudes, so
he's only 28.
No. He's older than that. This Magic team is that young.
I think he's got a championship pedigree to him.
Correct. For reference, fellas, they were for a while there when the big 3 were all out: Banchero, Suggs, and Wagner. Trevelyan Queen, a guy you've probably never heard of.
Oh, sure. I know who he is. Yeah.
Well, okay, let me put it this way. The layman has never heard of, because who am I talking to? That's my bad, Jim. My bad. But the most people never heard of, because who pays attention to the 2022 G League MVP? He's 28 as a distributor, coming from the G League, giving it to dudes that are 24, all over the roster with Franz and Paolo and all those guys. So yeah, maybe KCP feels 28 playing with this group, but definitely the statesman in the room. And I expect him to do better this year now that he's kind of getting more comfortable in his role. Like, he's not Ray Allen old, but like, that type that's going to be that shooter, that's going to be that elder presence like your group was with Garnett and that championship group you had there for a while.
You forget how long he's been around. He's been around since the Pistons. Let me ask you, because I think Mike probably has who he thinks would be a better matchup. Who, as a Magic fan, and who do you think Magic fans would rather see in the first round, the Cavs or the Celtics?
Oh, golly. I'll say this. The answer, the popular answer is going to be that they would rather see the Cavs. Here's my thing. And you referenced it earlier, Mike. If Porzingis is missing games or if he's limited, you better bet that they're going to attack down low. And you can't have one of these games that the media, fair or not, has started to be critical of, where Tatum might disappear or step back to give Jaylen Brown and those guys you can't afford that if that happens against the Magic, because if Banchero's killing you inside, then you have to make the shifts. God help you, if the Magic actually hit a few shots. This is how the Magic beat the Raptors with St. Augustine. I call him Saint. That's not his actual name. But when Augustine hit that three to win game one in Toronto, which was eventually a 5-game series where Kawhi would go on and get the championship nonetheless. But
didn't Vuk average like 28 points a game in that series?
Oh gosh, I don't remember. He might have though.
Like, he went nuts, but yeah.
But
they were just
nonetheless,
yeah.
You mentioned Vooch attacking the middle. It's the same concept, except Paolo's way good as a versatile player than Vooch ever was, right? Mike, I wasn't even ready. I wasn't even thinking about that. But if Porzingis isn't there to regulate some stuff, and if the backup bigs, which your backup bigs aren't bad, maybe they could still have an impact. I don't want to rule it out. But Donovan Mitchell scares me, dude. I watched this guy in Game 6 here at the Kia Center last year, and he scored 50 points, basically hitting no threes.
He scored 50, huh?
Yeah, and the guy asked him, Donovan, noticed that you got the 50 points, but you didn't make any threes. Why was that? Threes weren't going, so I took it to the hole. I'm like, he just decided to go to the cup and put 50 on you. I don't care who you are. That's scary, man. So,
he's had some great games.
Yeah.
I will say this, though. I know there's a lot of talk, and reasonably so, about Porzingis' health. He is healthy right now. If he's playing against, I think, anyone in the East, regardless of the team, that team has a matchup problem, a huge, huge matchup problem, and especially at the level he's playing at right now. And I would say, this is just my perspective, I think I would want anyone other than the Celtics if Porzingis is a go.
I agree.
Any team in the NBA. I actually think OKC could beat the Celtics potentially. So, but that would be my take with Porzingis.
I said I did say I'd rather see the Celtics instead of Cleveland, but keep in mind, Jim, my open was this could happen to Porzingis. That's a tell you everything.
A real possibility.
Well, that's his track record for sure. That's his track record.
Kyle, can I ask you a question just about Orlando ownership?
Sure.
It's a 2-part question. The first part: are you guys in the luxury tax? Because if you're not, I think you guys can be creative to bring in another star. And then the second question is do you have the type of ownership that's willing to invest and pay into that team and to go over the luxury tax?
So, first of all, winter is coming, right? When Paolo's rookie stuff expires, they will be.
Okay.
And that's the real conversation. And to be honest, I haven't dug into the contract minutia as much as I have because, listen, you mentioned me covering the Jaguars on Fans First Sports Network. Mm-hmm. All the work I've had to do with the Duval dive of them completely cleaning office. I haven't had the chance to peruse the NBA contract scene just yet. But what I can tell you is Paolo's eventual jump into, he's going to get a max, guys. He's not going anywhere, right? And when it happens, that's when we're having the real conversation. Now, you mentioned ownership paying in. Here's the thing. At this point, I think to that answer to that question is right now, yes, they can. However, their problem is making a deal. this is twofold. Like if you've heard anything in media, forget about just Orlando, in the state of Florida. I was even on a radio show in Jacksonville, 1010XL, that was talking NBA and asking me about Magic ownership making a move at the trade deadline and how they didn't do that and what that meant. First of all, the Magic not making a move at the trade deadline told you ownership was already putting out a flyer for this season. They didn't feel like they could get to be a championship competitor this year. They weren't going to the NBA finals. They weren't winning an NBA championship. And, if they were to slide all their chips in the table now only to get beat by Cleveland again, good God, what would that message say? What they're hoping to do, as I read the tea leaves, is they get more playoff experience. They get more elimination game experience because chances are they're going to be in the play-in, right, fellas? So they get that. And the idea might be that they make a move here in the summer. One would hope. However, here's the thing, guys. The downside of Jamal Mosley and his style in playing collective basketball, stars don't jump out if everybody's seen to be an interchangeable part. Other than, of course, guys they aren't getting rid of. They're not passing on Paolo or Franz or even Jalen Suggs. But then I would wonder if another team would want Suggs at his number with his injury proneness. The point is, beyond those guys, who is anybody going to want that would render any real assets? And I think that's the problem that's facing the Magic coming up.
And I think there's nothing more boring than NBA salary cap talk. But I think the risk of trading when you've had a season like the Magic and you're going to be a lower seed, you could potentially bring on salary that might start your clock sooner into cap jail, or a sense it's where you're paying the tax and then you don't want to be in the repeater and all those things. So as long as you can stay below that when your two stars are really ready to take off and you're spending the money and you hope at that point you're contenders and maybe Cleveland and Celtics and other folks have taken a step back, that's, probably smart business too, because you don't want to be in that repeater tax before you're at that point, or you're really hurting your team build. Which it's stupid the way that I think they put together the CBA, but it is what it is. Hey, so I'd love to hear just a little bit. We're a Celtics podcast, Mike. I don't know if you have any other basketball questions. I was going to hit him with pepper him with a couple football ones. We're a little later.
Before you do that, I think my overall point just was I look at this Orlando team, and I think they have the pieces. Even discounting Suggs not being there, and if he's not available, I think that they're a couple shooters away, and maybe a better center from being a legitimate contender in the Eastern Conference. I thought going into this season, quite honestly, that they were a top 4 seed. And I think when we were doing our preseason podcast, Jim, my thing with Orlando was, with all the moves they made, I still don't think they have enough shooting. And that was my thing. And I was like, I don't know if they have that true center inside. But I think they're a scary team to look at, and they have a bright future. And I don't know. I maybe disagree with you a little bit, Jim, that I think they might be worth the investment now if they can be creative, similar to how Brad Stevens was when he was able to swing guys for.
No, I meant in
like
season.
A Derek White or something,
I meant in season. I don't mean
in season. No, yeah.
The off season would make a lot of sense to make a move.
Yeah.
I feel the same way, Mike. I felt like, and Kyle, I think your article is perfect for this. If they were in the 6th seed going up against the Knicks, I think the Knicks are a flawed basketball team in a lot of ways. I think Karl Anthony Towns is one of the worst defenders in the NBA. And if you can figure out how to take advantage of that, and Brunson isn't very good on the defensive end either, you could steal a series.
And Cat has missed a lot of games too at times, it feels like,
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like if you guys were in that 3-6 series, that would be very interesting. And it's unfortunate because of the injuries that you guys have had.
Well, and here's the reason why. Here's the other thing I'd put in. And Mike, you make awesome points there too, Jim. I think I shouldn't say I think I know that the Magic front office kind of cited the same thing you did. They were afraid of getting kind of hoodwinked on a deal and getting tied to extra money. They wanted this. They wanted more of a sample size from this experiment and didn't get it right.
Yeah.
Paolo Paolo, Jalen, and Franz played for a total of 6 games in terms of minutes. So that ain't jack, as they say, right?
No.
But here's what else I think works in favor of the Magic. Let's look at the rest of the East, right? The Sixers are cooked. I love some Joel Embiid, but I'm sorry, his body's broken like a lot of big men get to that point. It's unfortunate. I hate it. I love.
Yeah, they're done. Yeah.
Nothing makes my old 90s basketball so more amazed than to see a 7-footer asked to shoot a technical foul. That's all I'm saying, fellas. But with them, the Bucks are in free fall. We don't know what to make of the Knicks despite Brunson because Tibbs can't keep dudes healthy, as so says the saying, right? The Pacers can't defend worth a darn. I'm going down the list. Meanwhile, the Magic's and Jimmy Butler and the Heat experiment has officially failed, right?
Yeah.
And that Adebayo's another year old.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
We hate the Heat here in the Quigley family.
I can't imagine why. But that whole being said, the Magic, though, of all the teams, of the many teams in the East, they're the ones that I can. The good teams seem to be holding pat. The only other one besides Cleveland that feels like an upward trend, or in Cleveland's case, the challenge will be can they maintain, right? Are the Magic, really? So, if they can find a piece, of course, the answer is if they can find a shooter. Augustine trailed off after that climax game I mentioned against the Raptors in those playoffs, right? Unless and the other good thing is they're all young players. If Anthony Black can develop into a consistent shooter, if they can get that rolling, Contavious Caldwell-Pope gets comfortable again next year, and they have that outlet. And then after that, once his contract's off the books, can they bring in another shooter? Can they draft a great shooter? All those things are something that could suddenly make the Magic very dangerous.
Exactly.
Yeah, and there's always going to be guys available, and that's the way the NBA works. I mean, just from the Celtics' perspective, they're going to have to trade one of their guys because the basketball penalties when you're in the repeater are ridiculous. Never mind the tax penalties. So they will have to trade either a Holiday or a Porzingis or someone like that in the offseason. So there's always guys around the league for tax reasons alone that are going to be available for a team like the Magic to take advantage of when they're trying to build upwards. So it's the opportunity's there for them. I would put the Pacers in that upward group with the Magic and the Cavs. So I know they have their flaws, but they
get a little defense. I'll agree with you. Yeah, that's for sure.
I don't have a question. I have one more basketball thing for Kyle. It's a request, and then Jim, we can talk football. I have a bunch of hoop heads that I work with, and we work with youth in our job, and we were just talking about like great NBA teams and like greatest players of all time. And Dwight Howard wasn't brought up as like the greatest player of all time, but he was brought up from that generation as like the best center of that 2010s generation. We're just talking about, the different players there. And these kids, Kyle, were like, Dwight Howard stinks. What are you talking about? Like, blah, blah, blah. He's horrible. And then you got to do a podcast covering those Orlando teams and talking about Dwight Howard. This guy was Defensive Player of the Year a bunch of times. And I know he just, maybe his longevity hurt his, and maybe his reputation when he went to the Lakers. But yeah, I think people forget how good he really was.
Well, and I'll say this about that, and that's a good point about Dwight Howard. Now, let me make clear my stance, because when he was around, I was still more of a fan watching loosely than I was covering the team, so I felt ways about things. And I know you may not be fond of Stan Van Gundy, but
I didn't mind him. He was a character.
Yeah.
I thought he was great, man. And the only thing he was ever a victim of was Pat Riley. Well, I'm getting there. Was Pat Riley being Pat Riley and being like, yeah, you got to the Eastern Conference Finals, but you know what? I'm going to go win the championship. And then he does it. Good God. But you mentioned Dwight Howard. Hey, I was a member of the crowd that was pro Stan and called him Dwight Coward and all of that. However, and here's the take that I think was best. And I heard it here on local radio from Nick Anderson, right? The Nick Anderson, founding player, star, for the Magic. And now
he's the one that picked Jordan's pocket in the playoff game way back when, right? On Jordan's
correct.
return. Yeah.
And he missed the free throws.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
also what he's known for. But Nick went on morning radio here at the Orlando Sentinel's Mike Bianchi and said that Shaq may be a better Hall of Fame NBA basketball player, but Dwight's numbers in Orlando can't be denied. He is Orlando's GOAT. And that's real hard to argue with, especially when he came out too at his speech where they dedicated him in the Magic Hall of Fame, where he himself acknowledged that Dwight Howard isn't Dwight Howard without Stan Van Gundy. And the way that offense in those finals that they did play against the Lakers went through him, anybody that was prominent shooting. Jameer Nelson became a big name with that organization because he was throwing a ball to Dwight, not because Jameer Nelson was particularly.
Oh, he didn't. That was Turkalute on those teams. Mikhail Petrus. There was a lot of talent on those, and they went far. And they went really far. They made a finals, and I think went to 6 against the Lakers. Right? Do I have that correct? I think so.
I think you do. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was all anchored by Howard.
As much as I called him Dwight Coward and all of that, I would be more than happy to drop some knowledge on your youth there to let him know. You can say what you will about Dwight Howard, but he did not stink.
No, he didn't.
Last week was our first playoff game, and my plaque psoriasis was so itchy under all my gear. Sometimes just thinking about scratching could take me out of the moment. And then my doctor told me I could get clearer skin with a pill called Otezla.
Otezla apremilast is a prescription medicine used to treat adult patients with plaque psoriasis for whom phototherapy or systemic therapy is appropriate. Otezla can help you get clearer skin after just 4 months.
Okay, ready for the next game. Talking to my doctor about a pill was a total game changer.
Don't use Otezla if you're allergic to it. Get medical help right away if you have trouble breathing or swallowing, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, throat, or arms. Severe diarrhea, nausea or vomiting, depression, suicidal thoughts, or weight loss can happen. Tell your doctor if any of these occur and if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts. Live in the moment. Ask your doctor about Otezla. Call 1-8444-OTEZLA or visit Otezla.com for prescribing info about cost, and more.
No, he didn't. I was stunned by that, and I was thinking that they know like the 2020 post Dwight Howard. They didn't actually see him play. Even when he was on the Wizards, he put up like 15 and 15 a game. Like the guy, his whole career, the league changed, and I think it kind of zeroed out centers like him. But during that time period, yeah, he played the Celtics tough, those KG teams. So
sure.
I just wanted to bring that up, Jim. You want to talk football? I'll hand it over to you. You know how I feel. I think no matter what, the Patriots are going to stink. So I'll just sit and listen.
Well, so I got a Jacksonville only question, then I got a Jacksonville Patriot related somehow question. But the Jacksonville only question: Trevor Lawrence. Has Trevor Lawrence issues been Trevor Lawrence's issues, or they have been Jacksonville Jaguars coaching staff's related issues with Trevor Lawrence, or is it somewhere? As of truth, somewhere in the middle.
The answer is B and D, front office. Just the complete, what's his word, negligence by Trent Baalke, who is now gone, by the way, to properly foster Trevor Lawrence. Isn't Jim Irsay and Andrew Luck bad? But it's close. Okay. First of all, everybody seems to forget that, in my opinion, call me biased because I went there every week. It was my first credentialed year with covering the Jacksonville Jaguars. Urban Meyer being his rookie coach was problematic. Okay. You just threw away a year. Then once they get Doug Peterson in, their offensive line was iffy. They get to that offseason after winning that playoff game, being within a touchdown of beating the Kansas City Chiefs, who went on to win that Super Bowl by way of letting Chad Henne get on a 93-yard drive, by the way, everybody seems to forget about in the divisional round of the playoffs. After that, everybody decides, hey, we good. We don't need to beef up anything. Sure, Trevor's getting murdered, granted not at a, shall we say, Joe Burrow clip, but he's getting hit entirely too much. Then the next 2 seasons, he's unable to finish seasons because of the way he's getting hit, because the Jags did not address the offensive line. Gentlemen, the first thing James Gladstone and this regime did was bring in beef. And by the way, I don't know if anybody will be listening on the pod. Well, of course they'll be listening on the pod. This pod's great. But like, for those that can't see the video, I have my Aaron Evans original painting of me and from my O-line days playing semi-pro ball. I have a little credibility here is all I'm saying. And to see James Gladstone bring in 4 offensive linemen that can play various parts of the O-line, you're about the potential for a breakout year from Trevor Lawrence is huge. And I'll leave you with this, guys. Christian Kirk was supposed to be done. Arrives from Arizona to Jacksonville, has a career year. The Giants think Evan Ingram's a bum, completely useless. Arrives with Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence and has a career year. You tell me who the problem is, fellas.
So your whole thing is if he just needs protection and he needs the ability to stay upright and he can play.
I find it interesting that I'm commenting about a lack of protection for a guy that just had a daughter, but yes. Well, I didn't throw that in there. I would ironically call that a dad joke. Would you not?
Yeah, that was pretty good. That was pretty good, Kyle. So my Patriots related one.
Yes.
You guys played the Titans. You play them twice a year, every year. Did Mike Vrabel get the most out of those Titans teams that never got over the hump and made it to a Super Bowl, or did he, did he take them as far as they could have went, or could they have gone a little bit further?
It's funny. I'm not supposed to talk about it this way because I cover the Jags, right? And much like the Magic, I want the Jags to do good because then I get to do cool stuff like cover NFL playoff games, right? But I mentioned that 2022 season, 2023 playoff game, right? That 2020 season where they go down big, and after the half, the Charger, and the Jags.
That was a great game.
All of that,
yeah.
Right?
I was down in Vegas for that. It was awesome.
Yeah, I think that's certainly my best pro experience in a press box, but I digress. The punchline's this, fellas. The game leaning into that was in itself for the division. And the series of unfortunate events, if you're a Titans fan, that took place, freak turnovers and defensive scores for the Jags. And I forget the quarterback's name, but it's one of these journeymen, is it Dobbs? I keep forgetting his name, but he's one of these dudes that catches on as a journeyman when all your guys get hurt.
Yeah.
They already lost Tannehill, and then it was not Will Levis, it was the kid from Liberty. His name escapes me. Anyways, the punchline being the Jags won that game in such a awkward fashion. The gods were against the Titans that day. They were more so against Vrabel. Vrabel, I like the way you put it, in that he maximized this team the best they got. And they kept on trying to get old receivers to put in a spark to that pass game to give Derrick Henry some kind of help, right? Whether it was Julio Jones, whether it was DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, now the latest version, and all the money you paid him. Hey, thanks for stopping the Jags from paying it, brother. Let me tell you. So I think Vrabel was left to kind of take punishment for the crimes of the front office that let A.J. Brown go. Now current Eagles Super Bowl champion receiver A.J. Brown go.
Hall of Famer, yeah.
Well, and I'll say this about that. I don't think he gets those numbers and that production in that environment. It's not Saquon Barkley, I told you so, but it's there. You know what I'm saying? So, I like Vrabel as a coach. I think he was scapegoated, sure as everything. And yeah, we'll leave it at that.
All right. Quick game of over under, then we'll say goodbye. And anything you want to prop up your pod at the end, we'll do that. But awesome. Over under on the amount of playoff games the Magic will play. We'll put it at 4.5. No, we'll put it at 5.5. 5.5.
You were going to get an under at 4.5 anyway, so there you go.
Okay. So you're going under.
Yeah, one, I'm including the play-in this way.
Okay. If you include the play-in,
Yeah, I got to say over at that point because the math doesn't math, does it? Yeah, I'll say
No.
over in that I think they'll win their play-in game. Just because I don't think they'll let the Bulls score the highest point total they've allowed in a season again. If they're playing somebody like that, I think they're good there. So yeah, I'll say over.
Mike, over 5.5 for the Magic playoff games.
I'm gonna say over. I'm gonna say I think they take Cleveland and Boston to 6.
I think they'll take Cleveland and Boston to 5. So if you want to add in the play-in, so I'll go over 2. I think they could take Cleveland to 6, and Porzingis is out. You could go to 6. Over under for Jaguars win at 7.5.
Yeah, I saw this too, and I'm gonna do a pod about this a little bit more in depth soon on the Duval dive. Boy howdy, this is not an easy one, but I do think it's very interesting today. Not having seen the draft, I feel like the Jags are the one team in the AFC South that's trending up. Everybody else feels like they're taking a step back, especially with the Colts quarterback situation being what it is. I don't believe in Will Levis and Cam Ward. Everybody, not enough people are talking about Mario Cristobal in Miami's, assuming they draft him, of course, is talking about Miami's protection in O-line and what they did there. That being said, even, yeah, golly, over feels, if it was 6.5, I'd say over. I'll put it that way. Today I will say over, but I reserve the right to change my mind.
I'm going to pass. I have no idea. So I'll leave it at that. I'm going to pass.
I'm gonna go over. Hey, I'm gonna go over. That division stinks. They can bounce back and win 8 or 9 games. Absolutely. Get that kid some protection. They got some good They got great young wide receiver there. So yeah, I'm gonna go over.
And I'll last question.
Whatever the Patriots are, under.
Yeah, probably under. Although the AFC East outside of Buffalo isn't that good. So over under. You need 16 games to win a title. So 15.5 wins for the Celtics this year in the playoffs.
Oh, it's over.
You think they got to win it?
I really do. Man, listen. And again, my only concern always is Porzingis. I enjoy Porzingis's game. I don't even know what to add to that. I don't know who the West is going to send because it's a cluster and it's a dust up, and it's obviously the superior conference. The good news is I don't think you'll see Porzingis again. Or excuse me, Joker again anytime soon coming out of there.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, that's the one guy who I think might cause enough problems. Just because I dare you to try to stop him, he'll find some way to find a hole. I think you can neutralize SGA in the aggregate. I feel like that's kind of the answer to anybody would bring from the West, is you could kind of neutralize them in the aggregate. I thought it was adorable when people thought Dallas had a shot last year.
Yeah, we did too. We kind of laughed at that. There was a lot of other teams that I thought would have been more competitive out West than the Dallas Mavericks. There was just a matchup issue all the way around.
Yeah, and unless the Lakers get through a lot of sweeps, even if Luka makes it against you again, I don't see it.
It again, it gets to what I brought up at the beginning. They're an isolation team that feeds right into the Celtics' hand. They love when you go ISO against them. So because they can just switch on everybody, they have multiple defenders that can handle it. Hey,
I could switch this right on you. Over under 2.5 backups on the Celtics roster that could start other places. Like that's you know what I'm saying?
Oh, that's over. Yeah, that's over.
Got Al, you got Hauser.
Yeah. I mean, one of them's a Hall of Famer now, Horford. So.
Yeah, Horford's a good
player. Miami blew the Celtics out tonight. Blew them out.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah,
they did. Hey, plug your pods one more time. And everyone get on there, subscribe to his pod, like, comment, everything. But go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, an honor, joy, and privilege to jump aboard. This is the most fun I've had with Boston fans in a while.
We're not all assholes. We're not all racist and assholes. Some of us are halfway decent.
Hey, listen, if I really wanted you to turn on me, you could have me back sometime and I can explain to you why I don't think Tom Brady's the GOAT. He's just the most accomplished. Anyways,
we'll have to do that. Yeah,
it would be fun if nothing else. Right?
The only guy I take personal is when people come at Larry Bird. So as long as you're not coming at the Bird man, then I'm fine.
Listen, I felt like if I come after Larry Bird might find me. That's a risk I can't take.
Well, he lives in Florida, so.
Exactly. So, guys, an honor, joy, and privilege to jump aboard tonight. Of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram's Thread, and Blue Sky at the SOTG. That's for the student of the game. Of course, find me as the student of the game on Facebook. Check out my writings with the Fans First Sports Network, serving the Duval Devout by covering the Jacksonville Jaguars, as well as writing about the Orlando Magic. Check out my work as well, covering the UCF Knights, football, basketball, and otherwise on the Black and Gold Banneret.com. Also doing their podcast, Night Shift, the Night Shift podcast, also on the Night Shift YouTube channel. Make sure you check that out. Make sure you check out the Duval Dive podcast as well. That's where I do my Jacksonville Jaguars action with Travis D. Holmes of Big Cat Country as part of the Fans First Sports Network as well. And make sure you head over to the Duval Dive YouTube channel. We're trying to grow that beast there. We're coming up on 400 or 500 subs there, on the way to 1,000. That would be awesome to do that. And hey, listen, as Travis keeps telling people, get it while it's free. Y'all jump in there.
Well, hey, thanks so much for joining us. It was an honor to have your expertise on here and talking basketball, talking football. And if these guys match up in the playoffs, let's do this again.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was a lot.
And as I like to tell all my people as the student of the game, for me, it was an honor, joy, and privilege. But until next time, everyone, class dismissed.